Lose one, pal. Gain another. Bring on Jonathan Powell.
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Wednesday, August 6th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank you so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Wednesday going the right way. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Hey, I want to give a special welcome to all the everydayers here with us, all the great members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and all our Locked On Tar Heels insiders as well. The links for both of those things are in the show notes. Would love to have you join. It's a great place to be. Joining me today is our good buddy, Riley Davis. You know him, you love him. I know him, and I feel the same. Yes, I love him as well. You can find him hanging out on Sleepers Media, giving Carolina all the praise it deserves all the time. I'm laughing because Riley keeps it real and honest, and I appreciate that, and other places as well. Where we're headed today is this is week 4 of the roster preview series. We've run through all 3 freshmen, Caleb Wilson, Zay Denis, Derek Dixon. Now we move to the sophomores, which, by the way, have just added another member to their ranks. We'll get to Ivan Matlikovich soon enough, as well as James Brown. But today, we're going to hit Jonathan Powell coming over this year for North Carolina. So we'll talk about him. We got your bio blast, his stats from last year. We'll do some big picture conversations. We'll look at strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll project ahead to this year. What does he need to be working on? His floor, his ceiling, his role. Bold predictions from Riley and myself, as well as an over-under to wrap the show. Going to be full and fun. Riley, can't wait for this conversation. Why don't you roll us through the JP bio blast?
Yeah, first I got to say, Isaac, sorry to disrupt your order, but you buried the lead. I can't believe I didn't get asked to come in to break down obscure Croatian film tape on Ivan Matlikovich. So hit me up next week because I want in on that.
Okay, we'll do it. Look, next week's James Brown, but then we'll do Matlikovich after that.
Right, let me come in.
Book it now. The Isaac Riley connection for Matlikovich coming at you.
It might be
the Ivan we thought we would get. We thought it would be Karchenkov, who wound up in Arizona at one point.
I'm a big fan of Ivan Karchenkov. I'll be very tapped in to see how he does at Arizona. But yes, it might be a 5-minute podcast breaking down Ivan Matlikovich Croatian League film, but it'll always be entertaining, believe that. But anyway, on to Jonathan Powell. Here is his bio blast. He's from Centerville, Ohio, played at Centerville High School. He's a sophomore who most recently played at West Virginia. Listed as a guard, I think of him as more of a 3 than a 2 just because we haven't really seen him handle much. At West Virginia, he was almost exclusively a spot-up threat. Wore number 11 at West Virginia. I would expect that would be the same at UNC. He's listed at 6'6", 191 on West Virginia's roster last year. And you want me to go ahead and get into the social media handle, Isaac?
Okay, yes, Riley. This is Riley's indoctrination to the social media rating. Riley, hit us with it. What do we got? Are we going to understand who this is?
Yeah, so Twitter, the Twitter handle is pretty straightforward. It's just Jonathan Powell 1 with the O is a 0 and Powell. But what I want to talk about is the Instagram handle being JP. And when honestly, man, sometimes basketball, I know you're an analytics guy. I know you have your stats and research database and all of that. Sometimes basketball is a little more ethereal and vibes based than that. When you see something like JP as someone's Instagram name, that tells me something. That tells me he has a little bit of confidence. I don't know. Pick your Gen Z brain rot term, whether that's aura or something else, motion, any of that. I think I'm very high on someone who has a little bit of creativity like that. And it's fitting when you watch him play. If you watch his West Virginia highlights last year, the dude loved to celebrate after knocking out a spot-up 3. And I need that energy this year.
I love that. So, Riley, I need each of us to give another JP that this could be outside of Jonathan Powell. If it was JP and it was not Jonathan Powell, who would it be?
Oh, man. Okay. Putting me on the spot. I'm like, there's got to be.
I've got nothing either. The first thing that came to my mind was Judas Priest, which I've never literally never listened to.
I like some Priest, but Pope John Paul.
There it is. Yes, John Paul. There we go. I love it. We're rolling. Folks, let us know in the comments. Spam JP with whoever you would pick for that. That's good stuff. Riley, rating of 1 to 10. We got Jonathan Powell with the 0 with the slashy thing on Instagram, and the JP on Twitter, and the JP on IG. What are you going with, 1 to 10?
JP would get a 10 out of 10, but the Twitter handle gets a 1.5 out of 10. So we'll split the difference and I'll bump him up to a 5.5.
Perfect. I'm here for it, man. That's great. I appreciate when it's consistent from one to the other. I wish we had JP all over the place. That would be gas if we're going to keep using those terms. All right, Riley, could you run us through also what JP did at West Virginia last year from a stats perspective?
Yeah, let's get into it. So he played 30 minutes per game, started 23 of 32. I believe he was inserted into the lineup after Tucker DeVries went down with the season-ending injury. I remember at the time when it happened too, he stepped up pretty admirably. Again, a kid going from 3-star relative unknown to playing 30 minutes a game for a solid bubble team that truthfully probably should have gotten in the dance. 3.1 rebounds per game, 0.6 offensive rebounds, 2.5 defensive rebounds, only 0.7 assists, 0.6 turnovers per game, 0 blocks per game, 0.7 steals per game. Not a lot to go off of there aside from the 3-point shooting and the scoring. He shot just under 38% from the field, and then he shot 35.2% from 3. And for the totals there, 64 for 182. Only shot 25 free throws on the season. Oddly enough, despite the good 3-point percentage, 48% from the charity stripe. But again, small sample size, tough to put too much stock into it.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to get to that as we talk about some areas to grow. Clearly, we need a better balance of shooting from other places. So, Riley, like going back to what you said about starting and playing, obviously played in every one of West Virginia's game. The durability is there. But then once he was inserted into that starting lineup, never looked back and started every game the rest of the season. As you said, a 3-star guy coming out of high school. Yeah, I mean, you think about him stepping up and owning that thing. What does that tell you? I mean, you already mentioned clearly with the IG handle like that, he's got some ideas that he's the man. What does this tell you about him?
To me, I think it's really impressive that you can even point to 35% from 3 on decent volume. That's not elite percentages, but again, from a kid who's a 3-star coming out of high school, not really expecting to play a role, to step into that and to seize the moment of the opportunity, I think it speaks volumes to his developmental curve. And people forget West Virginia started out really well last year. They began the season 11-2, got wins in Allen Fieldhouse. They got a win against Arizona on a neutral in the Battle for Atlantis.
He Gonzaga in that event too, right?
I forgot about that. Honestly. Yeah, that was when we started to see cracks in Gonzaga, but ended up getting a win over Iowa State. Like, they beat some high-level teams all year. It just missed I think they might have been the first team out of the big dance, but this was a guy who played on a team that had a top 15 defense nationally, and he played 30 minutes. So you got to assume he at least wasn't a liability, and really helped at least keep their offense afloat when Tucker DeVries went down. Yeah. Now, West Virginia ran everything through Javon Small. It all ran through him. He was among tops in that conference in usage rate, and he kind of got to take whatever shot he wanted to. And deserving of it. I mean, I don't know, dude. Yeah, I don't know what his pro career will look like, but he will at least get a shot in the NBA. I can't remember if he got drafted, but still, him being one of those play finishing types who could knock down a catch and shoot 3 was instrumental to West Virginia winning some of those games. And again, I think it speaks to the work ethic to defy some expectations there.
And I was trying to think about, like, comparatively as a 3 coming into Carolina, like thinking 2 years ago when Carolina was so successful and had that 1 seed, Cormac Ryan comes in a little bit shorter than Jonathan Powell, but like a fully formed 85-year-old old man, right? Where Jonathan Powell, as you said, comes in, was a 3-star this time last year that nobody expected to do much, gets the opportunity and makes the most of it. And now he's at North Carolina. So clearly a guy that it's not fully formed Cormac Ryan. It's a guy that's got a lot of room and space to blossom and keep growing. He's just got to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think it'll be most interesting to see what else he can do beyond threes, and even what are his 3-point attempts going to look like at West Virginia. From what I watched, mainly spot up. And don't get me wrong, there's a ton of value in that. It's easy to envision with the way at least Carolina started last year with pushing tempo. I know they slowed down as conference play went on, but I think having someone like that, you can have the hit ahead pass and find him on the wing in transition, or he's going to fill the corner and knock down threes in the primary break. That's going to be really valuable. I do wonder a little bit, even looking at a Cormac Ryan comparison, Hubert would run some sets for Cormac. There were times where he would run them off of flare screens. Occasionally he would come off those like stagger screens to get to his mid-range shot, or even had some sets run for him on the baseline out of bounds plays. A lot of Cormac's threes were created though by either RJ Davis getting into the paint or Baycott commanding attention and passing it out to him, or even maybe Harrison Ingram cutting and then Ingram kicking it back out to the perimeter on the extra pass. And it's kind of the story of this offseason for UNC basketball. There are so many wild cards to where there's no one who you can pinpoint and say he for sure can collapse the defense and kick out to Powell spotting up. Yep. Or I would say Veesaar is not, really a post-up threat. He's more of a short role playmaker, lob threat type. I don't know if it's going to be like give it to Veesaar on the block, let him command a double, and he'll kick out to Powell.
Yeah. So we're going to have to watch to see who for North Carolina has that gravity needed to make a player like Jonathan Powell be as effective as he possibly can be. And obviously, you're talking about those other skill sets. That's going to lead nicely, Riley Davis, way to go making the segue into our next conversation, where we look at the strengths that Jonathan Powell brings to the table, the deficiencies or weaknesses that he needs to grow in ahead of his sophomore year. And that's where we'll head coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Monarch Money, do you ever wish that managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, now it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility of and full control over all of your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, your investments, and your spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also working at building wealth, hopefully for yourself and future generations. Something I found that I really love is having everything financial all right there in one app. So instead of having to have a bunch of different financial apps scattered all over my phone or a folder with a bunch of them, it's right there in Monarch Money. You just go to that one place, and that makes managing the day-to-day of your finances so much easier. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. It's a great deal. Again, monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Okay, Riley, let's turn our attention now to just breaking down the positives and negatives with Jonathan Powell. And we'll start with the strengths, and I'll ask it to you this way. What are the things you see from Jonathan Powell that are going to make him matter in the Carolina rotation this season?
3-point shooting, Isaac. That is the sell. That's one thing is not going away. We can sit here and argue, how is he going to get these attempts? Who's going to collapse the defense and kick out to him? Who can create for themselves on this team? As much as I love Veesaar, can he command enough gravity in the paint to open things up for Powell? But one thing we know, when he gets the ball, he's going to look to shoot, and I think he will shoot a high percentage.
That's well said, and we'll do some over under with that percentage later on in the show. I love that you just said shooting, period, point blank, end of statement. We could move on, but I'll add just a couple things. One that I really like is positional height. Mm-hmm. I love how you put it earlier. Like, just because of his capabilities, I think he's more suited at the 3. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him at the 2 every now and again, although there's kind of a logjam in and around that shooting guard spot. But that positional height will help. I remember reading at some point this offseason from Inside Carolina's Sherelle McMillan, and it stuck with me that Jonathan Powell, he called him an old school Roy Williams wing. And that just made me light up, Riley Davis. I don't know about you, but I kind of liked that. One other thing I want to think about with potential strength is defensive length and switchability. We will see with the foot speed and how he's able to do against smaller guards. But think about the difference with last year's team. This is how I kind of framed it in my head, Riley. When Seth Trimble was playing the 3 and he's 6'3", versus when Drake Powell was back at his normal position, basically at the same size, it made it infinitely more difficult for opposing threes and when he switched on to smaller guards to deal with that. Am I saying Jonathan Powell is the defender Drake Powell was? Absolutely not. But from a size and length perspective, I think that helps much more than when you've got a Seth Trimble sitting there.
Yeah, I'm with you completely. And, even going back to the Cormac comparison, because I think the best version of Jonathan Powell, maybe we don't see it this year. Maybe it takes a second, and nothing is guaranteed in the portal area, but the portal era. But maybe we see it more year 2 in Chapel Hill, where he is like a bigger Cormac Ryan. It's not a 1-for-1 comparison, but there are some. At least you can see a similar role here. Something that I thought, even going back and watching some Cormac tape, he really battled defensively and I think had underrated hands. Like he would make stuff happen with deflections and always seemed to be in the right position. And I haven't dove into the West Virginia film enough to say, Powell is a significant difference maker on that end of the floor. Again, like I kind of said in the first segment, just looking at the numbers of West Virginia defensively, then playing in the Big 12, a very defensive minded league. If you play 30 minutes a game for a team that, a bubble team who held its own in that league and had some big wins, I'm left to believe you're at least not a negative. You at least don't make mistakes. But to that point, Isaac, with that positional size, and I know we'll get into this in some areas to improve, that's where I'm hoping to see, just Powell, let's see some more chaos created with his length, and I think you got to a good point with last year where the team hit its stride, and granted, you can poke holes with the schedule when they did hit their stride, which I gladly will do. I gladly will do. That is, yes, I think you should poke holes in it, but still, they were at their best when they had Powell playing the 3 instead of having Seth Trimble matched up against bigger wings.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely true. The funny thing is, I was going to say the only thing I hope is that Jonathan Powell shoots better from 3 than poor Cormac did his senior year. But I forgot that he came along late. I just looked as you were talking. He hit 35.4 by the time it was all said and done. Cormac did that year.
What was his 3-point total that year?
Oh gosh, I just closed out of it. Sorry.
Good.
Stand by. It was 75 of 212.
Hitting 75 threes. I mean, if Carolina can Carolina should be a top 5 seed come tournament time if they can get 75 made threes from Jonathan Powell.
At 100%. All right, let's flip the script, Riley, to the weaknesses or areas of growth. You talked earlier about his catch and shoot threes. 94% of his attempts were catch and shoot variety last year. So when you think about that, what are some of the weaknesses you see in Jonathan Powell's game, some of the holes?
So just not much offered outside of his outside shooting. He didn't have great steal numbers, didn't log a block on the season. You have no assist numbers to go off of. He's basically, at this point, he's shown that he's a 6'6" spot up shooter, which again, valuable even if he doesn't build upon that. But I think I would love to see Carolina be able to run more sets for him to get him a look as like a movement shooter. Or even there's one highlight, it was against one of the bye games West Virginia played where Powell was handling, he gave the ball up, got a flare screen, relocated for the open 3. I love watching that type of basketball when you see a shooter handle, give it up, and then he relocates and you watching a defense scramble to keep up with him. I want to see more of those types of sets. And again, going to not to hammer home the Cormac comparison, but you can go back and watch that Duke game where Cormac lit them up in Cameron. I believe it was with under 2 minutes left. They had that same type of set where Cormac had the ball in his hands, gave it up to RJ. They run a flare screen with Armando. He pops out for 3, hits it, and ices the game. Those are the types of threes that I think for someone who has never played high level basketball is like amazing to watch, because you just wonder how can someone who is 6'5", 6'6" be moving at that speed, still stop on a dime, catch, square up, and knock it down. Like, I personally love watching that, and I think it's extremely hard to guard. So yeah, that's where I'll be monitoring. Can Powell make strides in the variety of threes he hits? Plus, how does he improve as a ball handler? How does he improve at getting to the free throw line? All of that.
And I think it's those things that ball handling improvement, the defense, those are the things that are going to, like, the 3-point shooting will get him on the floor. It's the defense and ball handling. And what I wrote this in our notes, variety of 3-point origination is the phrase that I thought of. I'm just like, other than those 94% catch and shoots, if he can do it with other ways, those are the things that's going to keep him on the floor once he gets out there. I think another aspect of it, we'll get to this in 3 things to work on this offseason, is just being more physical, getting into the mix of things rather than, I don't want to say he settled for shooting around the rim last year, or shooting outside last year, but that's where the wild majority, I mean, you talked about his statistical numbers, 182 3-point attempts, just 69 twos. So almost tripled appropriately so, the number of twos with his number of threes. And so that's another area is like that self-creation, get into the mix of it that I'd like to see him grow in as well.
If those scrimmages are any like signs of optimism, he was knocking down tough shots off the bounce in those camp scrimmages. And I have been duped by camp scrimmages before. make no mistake about it. So it might not be real. It might be a mirage. But watching those clips, it's like, I didn't see this at West Virginia. I didn't see the ability to get in the paint and finish, or even get to an in-between game and knock down a floater. There is a lot to like about getting a guy who was an impact player on a Big 12 team as a freshman and hoping that developmental curve continues. You have to wonder, you talked about Javon Small earlier, if I haven't gone back to look at his usage rate, but I wonder if his ball dominance was any kind of factor in that. And like with not having a clear-cut guy like an RJ who would demand that this year, you wonder if that unlocks some of what you were just talking about with Jonathan Powell. That there could very much be something to that, Riley. Okay, we need to get to our 25-26 preview. I'm gonna ask you to put your Coach Davis hat on, give us some things you want to see him improve on. We'll talk about expected role, his floor, his ceiling, bold predictions, and an under. Under what? I can get that the right way around. Riley and I know JP. Hubert Davis knows JP. I want you to know JP as well. We'll talk about that to wrap the show in just a second. Isaac Schade, Riley Davis coming at you. We're talking Jonathan Powell today. And now we move to a preview of the upcoming season. I'm going to ask Riley to put his Coach Hubert Davis hat on and conduct like an end of season meeting. What would you tell this player are 3 things you want him to be working on before next season? Excel on the court, in the classroom, and in the community. I had to hit on my Hubert Davis cliche. You got to get that in there, the catchsrace. No, discipline but details, Riley. Discipline and details. Alter, tweak, and pivot in these 3 areas. But I would say, okay, so headed into the next year. So this is after year 1 in Chapel Hill, correct? I'm saying coming in like over the next 2 months. Oh, okay. This summer, I got coming into this year. Got you. Got a little confused on the prompt. My apologies. No, that's my fault. I was not clear enough, sir. I would say improve as a ball handler, improve as a decision maker, because there are more minutes to be had in this backcourt. And if you can show me that you can make reads, again, going back to the Cormac comparison, he was very underrated as a secondary playmaker. He did so many of the little things that, if I hash them out, you'd probably say they're just tropes for Caucasian basketball players. But I mean, with Cormac doing things like being a smart passer, knowing how to read a defense, if Powell can make those similar strides, you're looking at the talking point of the offseason. What does this backcourt look like? How quickly does Luka acclimate? And you probably will not find a bigger Luka fan than me. I think he is going to be the alpha in the backcourt. But even I have to acknowledge question marks of his late arrival. How long does it take to adjust? Sure. Plus just the wild cards that are Kai Evans moving up a level, Seth Trimble moving out of being a 3rd or a 4th guard into one of the primary options. If any of those 3 falter, there are minutes to be had if you can round out your skill set a little bit more. Yeah. Man, it's funny. I was just looking at, you're talking about ball handling. I was just looking back at West Virginia's kind of advanced numbers from last year. How about this, Riley? This is breaking news that I had not picked up on. Jonathan Powell led the Big 12 in turnover percentage last year, 6.4%. Now, a lot of that, when 94% of your attempts are catch and shoot threes, that's going to be the case. But still, that's pretty crazy stuff to be sitting there. Okay. Yeah, man, right with you on all that. My 3 kind of things would be, I want to see more attempts from 2. I want to see more attacking. Those go hand in hand to me, right? And you referenced it when you were doing the stats, just 20 free throw attempts all of last season. He's got a quick first step. We saw him do that, as you said, in other moments. His high school tape shows some of that. Get into the mix more. When your 3-point shot has gravity, it allows you some more driving lanes, and he needs to utilize that. And then the third thing for me, it's Carolina. He's got to rebound more. Just 3 boards a game last year. Those would be some of the ones for me, Riley. Yeah, I think rebounding is a huge one too. That would be something I personally would like to see, it being more of a team effort from the 3 through the 5, so.
100% with that. Okay, let's talk expected role, kind of spot on the depth chart for Jonathan Powell. As you start looking, and let's assume in this answer that Luka Bogavac is in and good to go and acclimates really well, right? Let's assume that version of it. In that scenario, where would you have Jonathan Powell?
I would have him as the sixth man, at least to start. So I know right now the team is posting, I think it was Caleb Wilson posted on his Instagram story, PG1 with the photo of Kyan Evans. And that was what he was recruited to be. That was what he was paid to be. That was the pitch. And he is going to get a crack at that. You can't, honestly, they're basically professionals now. You can't pay a guy what UNC is paying Kyan Evans and not give him a chance to or the opportunity at least to show that he can be a lead guard. So I fully expect him to be starting at the one on the opening night of the season. I think there is a world where if Jonathan Powell is Jonathan Powell from camp scrimmage games and he takes that leap and is more dynamic with the ball in his hands and he's more than just a catch and shoot threat, you see a world like if Kyan Evans proves to be more of a 2-year plan kind of guy, where sometimes you see that with a year 2 transfer, they explode and live up to the expectations more so than they did in their first year. A guy like Tristan Newton at UConn comes to mind. If that's Cam Johnson, yeah, we've seen that in our own program. If that turns out to be the case for Kyan Evans and he's more of a 20-minute a guy combo who can knock down 38, low 40s percentage of his threes, I think there's a world where you're playing more through Luka Bogavac and Caleb Wilson. Those two function as your primary playmakers, and that opens up the floor for opens up the door. Confusing my basketball terminology.
Yeah, it works.
Anyway, opens up the door for Powell to step into the starting lineup. But I think my most likely projection, I think, is the sixth man.
Yeah, I'm with that. And it was either 6th or 7th for me. And the reason being would be dependent on Jarin Stevenson and just what he's able to, like, where he falls into the mix. Like, but it's, for me, it is 6th or 7th, assuming everything is in line with what you said about Kyan and Luka, right? Seth is a known entity, and we've got that. So I'm with you. All of that said, I mean, if he's in that sixth man role, let's think floor and ceiling. Riley, worst case scenario, what is the floor for Jonathan Powell this season?
I would say the floor, I honestly can't really see him falling below the 7th man in the rotation unless Derek Dixon or Isaiah Dennis just lights it up from the jump. And like we're talking, Derek Dixon comes off the bench against Kansas and gives you 11, 12 points or something. Yep. And Hubert realizes I got to play this kid, something like that. In that case, I would say he's probably averaging between 5 and 6 points per game. And maybe the floor would be shooting low 30s from 3 instead of, I would say maybe dipping, even going through a little sophomore slump and dipping below his percentage from last year.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And for that reason, what you said about Dennis and Dixon, I said his floor would be like 8th on the depth chart, because that would mean like Luka is who we expect him to be. So he's the starting 3. Jarin Stevenson blossoms into who we thought he could be all along and is getting more like his first guy off the bench. And then either Dixon or Dennis just leapfrogs Jonathan Powell out of the gate. And so 8th with a low 30s, high 20s 3-point percentage, and not adding anything beyond catch and shoot, stand around the arc 3. What about the ceiling, Riley? Let's project the other side of it. In a crazy world where everything's popping, what is Jonathan Powell's ceiling this year?
I think if he ends up finding his way into the starting lineup, he could give you, let's say, 11 points per game, shooting 38 to 40% from 3.
That makes a ton of sense to me, right? Like, he's your starting wing. Luka just doesn't acclimate for whatever reason, or Jonathan Powell just beats him out, which would be even better. And he's hitting exactly what you said. In an alternate ceiling scenario, he's not the starting 3, but he's the ACC 6th man of the year, right? Like, either of those, you could pitch to me as Jonathan Powell's ceiling, and I would love it, right? And so I think that makes a ton of sense with that. All right, Riley, 2 more spots. Bold prediction, and I got a couple over-unders for you. You got a bold prediction for Jonathan Powell this season?
I do. My bold prediction is Jonathan Powell breaks Jalen Withers' single game 3-point makes in the ACC tournament record.
That's so incredibly specifically hilarious. Where did that come from? How did you get to that?
Well, Be honest, Isaac. Go back to late March of 2024 when Jalen Withers takes an ill-advised 3 against Alabama to essentially seal UNC's fate. If in that moment someone told you this dude is going to set a record at UNC for most made threes, if you had told me most made threes in an exhibition game, I wouldn't have believed it, much less a postseason game. So I love the randomness of that fact. It's also easy. Let's say Carolina gets a first round bye. They're not good enough to get the double bye in the ACC tournament, and they're playing who's a mid low tier team like Cal or Stanford on Tuesday.
Tuesday
Would it be Wednesday? Yeah, on Wednesday of the ACC tournament at 12:30 in the afternoon, and Stanford is still waking up because of the time difference, and Jonathan Powell lights them up for 8 threes and a half. Like, feels somewhat obtainable, somewhat realistic.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Like, I feel like we should stop this entire podcast because yes, as a reminder, Jalen Withers went 7 of 10 against Notre Dame in Carolina's first ACC game. And then a couple nights later proceeded to step into the lane when he shouldn't have. So there's that.
The duality of man.
Yes, right. Kihei Clark is the key guy I think of with that, who had the pass back ahead to and then the dumb pass against anyway to Diakite. That's exactly who it was, man. Anyway, that's just something that always hits my head. My bold prediction for Jonathan Powell is exactly what I said. ACC 6th man of the year, and hits 40% of his threes. Doesn't have as many shot attempts as he had at West Virginia last year, but even in that smaller sample size or smaller role is able to get 50 made threes, and just helps because of that role, launches Carolina into like a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. And so that'll be my bold prediction for Jonathan Powell. Okay, Riley, over unders for Jonathan Powell. They both revolve around 3-point shooting. The first being the number I just said, 50 made threes on the season, over under. As a reminder, last year at West Virginia, he had, I just lost the number, 64 made threes.
I got to go under.
Yep. I think that's the right call.
50 made threes off the bench is a lot. Carolina will be very good if he hits that. So that should be a benchmark, but yeah.
A benchmark for a bench player. I like it, Riley Davis. All right. The other one also involves 3-point shooting. 35% over under from 3-point range. Does he have that sophomore slump that you referenced earlier, or does he take a step forward from what he did last year in Morgantown?
I'm going to go over. I think he can get to 36 or 37. Off the top of your head, can you think of a Carolina 6th man in recent years that shot a decent volume at a high percentage from beyond the arc? Because there's not really has UNC had one of those recently?
Man, I think of
Kerwin Walton.
I was going to say, that's funny. Kerwin's freshman year, he broke the 3-point. He shot over 40%, but he wasn't. Remember, RJ started in the starting lineup, but Kerwin overtook him and was not 6th man, but kind of functionally still was. So maybe that's the answer to what you're looking for. Kind of Brady Manic until he got inserted into the starting lineup, perhaps. But I don't think he was as on fire as he was late in that season.
Right. So,
that's a great question, man. I'm sure people are screaming names at us as they hear this. So let us know. But those are the first couple names that come to mind.
Yeah, even going back to like 2019, I'm looking at some Roy Williams teams. I mean, Brandon Robinson shot 46% off the bench, but only made 23 on the season. So
lower volume. Yeah.
So we'll have to dig into that a little bit more, but I can't really. You literally might have to go back to someone like Danny Green
before he was started. Yeah.
How many? Let me pull up some Danny Green numbers right now.
Marvin Williams had some nice 3-point numbers. Notable bench player.
Is that it?
There's got to be more. I feel like we need to research this and come back with it, because that would be an interesting conversation to have sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys.
Wait. PJ Hairston. PJ Hairston might have been one of those guys.
In his year, probably like. Did he start his sophomore year? Or
yeah, he started his sophomore year. He shot 27% his freshman year.
He wasn't good, 40%. And then he shot it his sophomore year.
But I think he started, so he's probably disqualified.
Man. All right. Folks, research this with us. Let's have a conversation about it sometime, because that's an interesting conversation. A 3-point shooter coming off the bench. I mean, we could go way back to other names are now popping in my head. Remember how Coach Guthridge rotated those 6 guys as starters? So in the games that Shammond Williams was coming off the bench, he would count for that back in 97, 98 era.
Yeah, so. Kindergarten me was locked into Guts bench rotations.
That's where my age is showing. I was like 13, 14 at that point. So there we go. All right, guys, there it is, your Jonathan Powell preview. Next week, we move on to JB. From JP to JB, James Brown will have his preview for you then. Thanks so much for being with us. Make sure you give Riley a follow at RD. No, I'm just kidding. At Riley_Davis3 on Twitter. Make sure to go check out all his great work on Sleepers. I know those guys are always cranking it out, adding more and more and more stuff all the time. It's great work there. And then make sure you subscribe to Locked On Tar Heels. You can follow on all the social medias. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and audio as well. Join us in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. That link is in the show notes. We'd love to have you. And if you want to go deeper, Riley referenced all of my stats and all my nerdy Excel stuff earlier. You get free access to all of that when you're a Locked On Tar Heels insider. You guys know the deal. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be back with you tomorrow with the conversation with Coach Rob. But until then, peace.